Hey there, Slotcar adventurers, and welcome back to another episode of Hughes Garage. This week, I thought we'd try something a little bit different. We're not going to build anything, we're not going to change anything. In fact, we're not going to do much at all, really. What we are going to do is 10 minutes straight of nothing but cars on track. There'll be no sound effects of any kind, there'll be no engine revving noises, there'll be no music in the background. Just you, me, and cars on track, shot from several different camera angles. So sit back, relax, and enjoy 10 minutes of Hughes Garage like you've never seen before. Enjoy! have it, Slotcar adventurers. I hope you enjoyed that. It was a bit different, wasn't it? And I couldn't help putting a little jump scare on the end there for you. Now, if you enjoyed this kind of content and you want to see more like that, let me know in the comments. And now let's have a look at this season's special side project, Studio Mods. Now, just a couple of years back, I put together a rather ambitious studio console enclosure. This one was designed to hold basically everything that I'd kept from my old recording studio, including all the outboard rack gear. I thought I could have it all in front of me. And for the most part, it was kind of cool. Except when you needed to repatch something, you'd have to lie on the ground and get right underneath the thing in order to get at all the inputs and outputs and various other hookups behind the gear. It just wasn't practical. Not only that, everything seemed to get in the way of everything else. So I had to admit it was a pretty dumb idea. So after quite a bit of thought, it's now time to fix it. And while I'm at it, I'm having a studio cull. I'm going to get rid of a whole bunch of equipment that I just don't use anymore. As you can see, I've managed to disassemble the entire console enclosure, and I'm now modifying all the various pieces. I'm shortening the length of this thing, and I'm going to modify these end pieces. There just wasn't enough space in this little room to function. So now, hopefully after these changes, everything will fit together nicely, and it'll also be a much more comfortable space to work in. Now with all the pieces cut down in length and the ends modified, I'm now reassembling everything. And since I don't have a dedicated workshop, I've just had to pick a space and hope for the best. All good so far, everything's fitting together nicely, it's plumb, it's square, everything's sitting the way it should. But now I'll have to create a few new pieces to finish this off. First up, I need to create a monitor shelf, one that'll run the whole span from one end to the other. This is for the computer monitors. 2 screens side by side, or maybe even 3. And through the magic of editing, here we are. I've got the shelf installed, I've got 2 monitors on it so far, and while I was at it I popped in the Euphonics Avid Artist Control units in just to see how it all fits together. So far, nice and snug. As you can see, there's absolutely no outboard gear mounted in this console. It's just the controllers, the computer monitors, and the speakers, which, by the way, are mounted on their own professional monitor stands, separate from the unit. Having experimented with various monitoring configurations, I think separate monitor stands are absolutely the best way to go, especially in a small private space like this. Now, I can tell you that this is definitely a major improvement over the way it was previously, but this time I'd like to create a nice cover strip. This old length of pine timber will be cut to the right length and then fit intricately in here to cover up all the wiring and various other connections that I've had to stare at day after day for God knows how long. I've got a length of vinyl material like you see on the front part there, and there's enough to cover this piece of wood so that the two match. It should look really nice when it's finished. But before I can do that, we're first going to have to fire up the router and cut out some grooves, etc., so that all the little plugs and fittings have the clearance that they are required. We don't want to break them. And given that my router is rather new and I'm rather inexperienced using it, yeah, I made a few little errors. Not to worry though, because this will all be hidden underneath from view. Meanwhile, I've gone ahead and loaded up my one and only little roll-around outboard rack. And I've started wiring everything up. Those Avid control units use a very sophisticated Ethernet type of hookup system. One cable coming from the computer feeds into a hub, which feeds the 5 units. It's probably the easiest of all the wiring I've got to do, but it's going to be nothing compared to what I've had to do previously. This is a much more condensed system, fairly straightforward, using only the few units that I actually use. To be perfectly honest, this isn't going to take that long at all, really. Only marginally more complex than your average hi-fi home theatre system. Well, maybe a little bit more complex, but I should have this all done in one evening. The only real question is, should I bring in the 3rd computer monitor or just stick with the 2? Not sure. And just a few hours later, I've added a few more things to the rack. And yep, I brought in the third computer monitor. It's a little bit larger than the other two. It's a 32-inch one actually. But as you can see, doesn't that look impressive? Plenty of screen real estate to spread all the programs across. There's Pro Tools, there's Console, there's a whole bunch of stuff being used simultaneously. And now it's all laid out in a very nice, ergonomically correct configuration, instead of all over the place. All the gear I've decided to hang on to is now plugged in, it's working, it's checked, and I'm even playing back last week's session. No issues so far, and that's what I like to hear. With the overhead light switched off, the room really comes to life. I've even reinstated my old Pod HD for direct guitar recording. Not that I really need it, I got a real amp here and effects pedals, but it is nice to have plenty of options. And of course this video wouldn't be complete without me pretending it's like something out of Star Wars. Oh, bugger off, Darth Vader. Yeah, get out of the way. Ruined my tracking shot. And on that note, so far, so good. The studio mods are coming along nicely. I've got a few other things to do, a few new items to add, and I'll give you an update in the weeks ahead. Now, I was a little bit unsure of continuing with this next segment, but Slotcar Adventurers, due to your popular demand, it's time for...
Ooh, show us your package.
Wow! Today's package has just arrived all the way from New York City, USA. Now, there's a little bit of a story with this one. The item hidden inside is something that I really wanted, but I was hesitant and I didn't go for it. And you know what happened? As a result, I missed out completely. By the time I realised I just needed to have one of these, you couldn't find them anywhere. No longer in stock anywhere on this entire planet. But thanks to one of my awesome subscribers over there in the US, they found this. It popped up on eBay of all places. Brand new, unopened, still sealed in its original plastic shrink wrap. And while it was priced at just a little bit more than what you would normally expect to pay for these, it wasn't that much more really. In fact, I paid much more for those Mad Max cars. So let's carefully get this bubble wrap off and see what's lurking within. And yes, I've stopped using little Stumpy to open packages. My wife got me this little handy dandy box cutter thingy. It gets the job done, but you can't argue that little Stumpy's a lot more impressive. And it seems to get things done a little bit quicker. Just saying. But without any further ado, let me present to you my latest addition to my little Slot.it collection, the Mazda 787B. And in my humble opinion, this is the holy grail of Slot.it cars. So a huge heartfelt thanks to Jim Ryan for finding this for me. At long last, I got the Mazda. Just look at that beauty. And so far, as best as I can tell, it's in perfect condition. But let's crack it open and just see if that is the case. Let's now carefully remove this shrink wrap off of what could possibly be one of the very last brand new ones in existence. You just can't find them. That's how popular this particular slot car was. At the time, I was all Carrera. Didn't even think of ever getting any Slot.its. How things change, hey? Yeah, be careful. We want to keep that packaging in as good a quality as possible. Oh, there's a slight crack in the top of the case, but we can live with that. That's all right.
Whoa, what's all that?
There's all sorts of extras, including what appears to be an extra chassis. Wow. Can't wait any longer. Let's get it out of the case. Careful now. Yep, they're really well packaged. Lots of plastic pieces. Even one supporting the... Oh, appears the spoiler isn't even attached properly. Actually, after a little investigation, they include a couple of options for mounting the spoiler onto the car. But for its initial road test, I think we'll go spoiler-less. In the meantime, just look at this magnificent slot car. Can't wait to try it out next week. And now it's time for Wildman's Thought for the Day.
Well, hello, slot heads. So my thought of the day, well, this will be an easy one. Next time you're looking at slot cars and you can't decide which one to get, remember my golden rule. Why can't it be both? No need to make a decision at that point, right?
Thank you, Wildman, for that lovely thought for the day. Oh, Wildman, I like the way you're thinking there. Yeah, that's a great idea. Well, folks, this week, while I've been busy modifying this console enclosure, I've been listening to none other than the legendary Whitesnake, starting with the US remix of the classic album Slot.it. If you haven't heard the US remix, they brought the guitars up. It sounds a lot more like the next album, 1987. But this is fantastic. Great album. 1987 was the big one, with songs like Still of the Night and Is This Love, etc. And the remake of Here I Go Again. Followed by Slip of the Tongue with Steve Vai on guitar. Not a bad album, but I expected a bit more, but yeah, it was pretty good. Later releases was the Good to Be Bad album. I think this came out in the 2000s. This is a fantastic album. If you've never heard this one, definitely check it out. Some great stuff on there. Follow it up by Forevermore. Another great album. And then the more recent studio release was Flesh and Blood. This is pretty darn good. I think I like this one a bit better, but this was great. Funny story about this one. When it came out, I went into one of Australia's last remaining music retail stores, JB Hi-Fi, and I couldn't find it on the shelves anywhere. I looked high and low, couldn't find it. A staff member was passing by. I said, "Oh, could you please tell me if the new Whitesnake album is out?" And he gets out his mobile phone and he's dithering around for what felt like forever, and then he finally looks up and goes, "Was that 2 words or 1?" And I'm like, "1 word." Yeah, that's what it's come to. That's where we're at now. The world has gone nuts. And, folks, that's what I listened to this week. And that's all we have this week, Slotcar Adventurers. Tune in next week and we'll put in a chip, an SP43, into this new Mazda and give it one heck of a test run on the track. Might even run these other slotted cars while we're at it. Could be lots of fun. So tune in next time for Hughes Garage Slotcar Adventures. Look what I just found searching the internet. It's a photo of Slotcar Wildman and soon to be Mrs. Wildman, way back on their first date ever, when Carrera launched their brand new Go slot car sets. And that's before the lawyers got involved and made them shrink them down a little bit. Don't know why. Party poopers.